So the next speaker is Eleanor, a colleague at King's. Again, to remind you, the course at King's starts in April. I'm plugging it insofar as this, we're beginning to understand, is a very multifaceted, multi-dimensional topic that we're dealing in and thinking about. Social, governance, environmental, lots of different sciences and issues and ways of thinking. And a lot of it is going to be either enabled or harmed, actually, by the next topic, which is AI, which is another, as I said before lunch, another major disruptor, positive or negative, that is coming down the pipe as well as these growing physical and transition risks that we've been talking about. So, Eleanor, would you like to come on up? And thank you.
Hello. I hope you're having a good time. Just having had a nice lunch, and now you're going to experience a 20 minutes lecture on AI. So hopefully it's not too hard of a sell, and hopefully I know how to use this device. Okay, so artificial intelligence. I've already received some positive feedback on the color of my slides, so that's already very good. So when Mark approached me and said, I have this great conference, great community interested in AI and all sorts of different challenging, emerging topics, I thought, how hard could it be? I mean, as a senior academic, I do quite a bit of traveling, business traveling, so I know a little bit about hospitality. My husband tends to be a heavy user of generative AI when it comes to planning our holidays, which is a bit of a problem. And guess what? I've been doing AI for 20 years. So here is demystifying AI in 7 slides. Number 1, AI is not new. AI is older than me. It's around 70 years old. There's different types of AI as well. So when someone is trying to tell you that AI can do something or is trying to sell you AI for your company, just make sure that you understand which type of AI they are referring to, and sometimes they don't know. So there's at least 5 types of AI, and then there's many other types of what some of us would call data mining or statistics, or, I don't know, linear regression. So the types of methods that all of us who have a quantitative background have learned about decades ago. Artificial intelligence typically is associated with, 5 different types of technologies. So number 1 is what I call the manual or the knowledge base. So think about a chatbot, where if a customer is asking about the Wi-Fi password, it returns the Wi-Fi password. Now, the problem with that sort of knowledge base or manual is that if the customer is phrasing the question differently, or it has a related but not the same question, like why is the internet so slow, then some issues will appear. And then the only way to solve this is to write even more of these if-then rules, which are going to be very, very difficult to maintain over time. Second type of AI is the analytical, the prediction type. Dynamic pricing being an example. So you have lots of data about, I don't know, bookings and flight delays, and then you decide on how to manage your prices. The third type of AI is the one that we've been experiencing in the likes of ChatGPT. It's the generative one, which, by the way, has been around since 2017, so it's already 9 years old. In that case, you can generate new content. You're still predicting in a similar way to my previous example about dynamic prices, but you're predicting towards generating a certain type of output, be that a review or an email or an image or a description of an image. Then there's another type of AI called agents. Some of you might have heard about Maltbook, which is this creepy sci-fi-like social network where apparently only AIs can post and we can just read like we do sometimes on Reddit. So agents are software, algorithms, that combine both AI and other types of digital services. So think about a travel booking service where you start with the chatbot, and then once an action is identified, like book the trip or offer a price for this room, then a different digital service is called, say, your booking system or a payment engine. And I think I said 5, and now I actually don't remember which one was the 5th. Never mind. So these 4 are already quite good. Let's move to this third slide. So there's different types of AI. So just make sure that you buy the one that you need, and make sure that people who are selling you the AI also know the difference. The one secret that most AI businesses are not going to tell you is that no matter how advanced that AI is, it's going to be only as good as the data that you have. So if your data is fragmented and in silos and of poor quality, your AI project, your AI product, your AI experience is going to be exactly the same. In fact, I would go as far as to say that your data is your biggest competitive advantage when it comes to using and innovating with AI, because it's that data that is going to allow you to build product, services, and experiences that really speak to your customers. The other thing that is important is that data, as you have it right now in digital services, is not what we call AI ready. So if you want to give the data to an AI engineer, they will require certain types of technical formats. They will be interested in certain types of data assurance techniques to make sure that the AI does what it's supposed to and it can be used safely. So it's worth actually educating your engineering teams, your data engineering teams about those types of things. The other type of data that I think is really, really important is measurement and assurance data. When you purchase AI capabilities, you should either test them in-house or have an independent tester do that for you to make sure that the AI is performing according to the things you find useful, your KPIs, your data. So you need to think about creating so-called data benchmarks and AI evaluations to make sure that something that has worked in an online environment for certain types of business also works for you. There's always going to be a capability gap. And in fact, machines and people are very much complementary. This is why I find these times, for me as an AI scientist, very, very exciting. So I summarize this as automate the friction, humanize the relationship. So when it comes to machines, we know they can be really, really fast. So they can go through tens of thousands of records and identify that one outlier and come up with a recommended action for it. There's speed, say, I don't know, customer service, 24 hours in 120 languages. There's also the ability to do complex predictions, especially if your data is good. So it can combine different data from different sources and identify patterns that no person or team in the world would be able to do at the same speed. Now, when it comes to the limits of AI, I mean, there's still many. There's things around complex judgments. So think of someone with a medical problem or with a very complicated multi-stop booking. Large language models have been trained, or AI has been trained to be helpful. And in these types of complex situations, the only way it thinks it can be, I shouldn't say think, the only way in which it will try to be helpful is by making things up with supreme confidence. You don't want that. There's also, let's just say something goes wrong. It's probably, you know better than me, that coming up with these bland apologies that don't really show empathy to the customer and the real context can be quite damaging. So people are still good at making those complex judgments and showing empathy and understanding the whole bigger ethical context of a decision. Now, this is, Mark told me you care a lot about sustainability. So then I should tell you something about the latest version of AI models that have been developed in the last decade, they are not environmentally sustainable. Yeah, so each of the models we might have heard about, GPT something or other, Gemini something or other, Claude, all of them are trained using huge amounts of energy. Yeah, so energy that is usually spent on powering an entire small-sized city in the Western world. In addition to this, there is a tendency, both when it comes to AI selling and AI buying, towards something that I call sledgehammer AI. So for the most pedestrian of digital problems, we tend to buy the hype and use very advanced, very competitive capabilities that essentially waste a lot of energy. Instead, and that sort of complements what I was saying about what type of AI are you buying and what type of AI do you really need. Instead, what you should be considering is training, building your own AIs with your own data. Those would be hundreds, if not thousands of times more energy efficient. So rather than buying something off the shelf that already has been trained with a huge environmental footprint that more and more people care about, think about what you actually need. Think about how you're going to measure all these capabilities to know that they really deliver what you need. And in most cases, you're going to need something much smaller and much less wasteful. There's also questions around the type of data center, so data infrastructure that you're using and their green credentials. There is an environmental cost depending on where your data processing, your data workloads are. There's also a question around how, and this can get very boring very quickly because it's about maths. But you don't need the same type of mathematical precision for most types of tasks you're going to be using AI for. So it's worth actually looking into that as well, because if you care about sustainability, you will need to have a good answer to these questions, and also consider those types of design choices in your governance framework, because guess what? You will need a governance and accountability framework. So this is not business as usual in terms of digital services. This is a technology that is what we call in computer science black box. So it's not like software where the more you test, the better grip you have on the various types of risks. It is a technology that every time you test it in a slightly different way, and slightly different way may mean misspelling a word, adding a French or a Chinese word in the middle of an English sentence, adding numbers wherever the tool does not expect them, and it will come up with a completely different answer, at least on face value. So, do we have a solution for this? Yes, there are some solutions. So you will hear about safety testing. You will hear maybe around about, how do you call it? Guardrails. Sorry, it's after lunch. But those guardrails that an AI engineer can put in place really need to be aligned with the way you want to run your business. You're in the driving seat, so when something wrong happens, I don't know, a chatbot is rising the room prices to $1 million, you need to be very clear about who is accountable and what you could do to fix things. From a technical point of view, you can have some very crude mechanisms, tools, so you could basically say the chatbot should not answer these types of questions. Those could be, in technical speak, jailbreaked relatively quickly. You can do your own testing, as I was saying earlier. Use your own data, be really clear about what good and safe means for you, and insist on those types of tests. Also, it's worth considering that unlike other types of software, when you found the mistake, you can't just go to the data source, change the value, and you will see an improvement immediately. That's not how the maths in this AI tools works. They are based on huge amounts of pre-trained data. They are customized using your own data. And it's almost impossible in many cases to pinpoint to one source of issues. There are some solutions that you can put in place to provide some explanations. So if you think about hiring someone, you would never hire a manager who would not be able to explain their solutions. When you buy your AI, you should ask about the types of explanations that that capability can support. And if anyone's interested, I'd be very happy to have a chat, because that's part of the research that I do. I'm going to conclude. AI will not solve all the problems you have. You definitely need to get your data in order and also think about getting the data AI ready, so in the technical formats and with the assurance credentials that AI tools and engineers need. You don't need the latest hype AIs that you read about newsletters on LinkedIn or in the media. So very often you'll be much better off, it will be much cheaper and environmentally much better to train smaller models on your data. And then you really need to think about your governance and accountability framework to make sure that AI is used responsibly and it serves your business purposes and your clients' purposes. Thank you. Very good. What is your view on synthetic data? Thank you. This is a much more technical audience than what you told me, Mark. Yes, I am quite positive about synthetic data. First and foremost, sometimes it's the only way to set up an engineering project. And right now, with the same type of AI capabilities, you can create good synthetic data. So all those questions around getting access to sensitive information, doing data sharing agreements or whatnot, that in the past used to create lots of frictions with respect to accessing the right data to be able to do any types of machine learning. So much easier to solve today. For testing your AI with respect to various safety components, like hallucinations and being generally useful to your needs, synthetic data is probably the only way you are going to be able to build a evaluation benchmark that is big enough to be representative and to be useful. So I know it used to be in the past in some sectors, people were quite wary of synthetic data, but right now I think it's an opportunity. What threats come with AI from your experience? Well, many and varied. With generative AI, as I was saying earlier, your ability to audit and understand what the model does and be able to course correct what it produces at the level of the individual answers is quite restricted. So then there's also questions around added value compared to the technologies you've been using for a really, really long time. I don't know, if someone is asking a factual, very specific question, it makes no sense to pay a lot of money and have all those risks that come with hallucinations and other safety issues that generative AI have, rather than just going and asking a trusted source of information for the answer. There's also questions around how you use AI that you have bought in-house, because there are still, technology has become much better at it than 3 years ago, but there will always be some risk of data leakage. So as you're using the AI, there is some risk around that data being used in some way in training or updating or improving that model. And then there is no guarantee that the data is not going to show up in answers that are provided to, I don't know, your competitor. Do large language models continually need energy? Does energy use taper off once the model matures? Haha, very good question. So the training of ChatGPT, for instance, and models like ChatGPT, that happens once. And unless you have $500 million to invest in that sort of thing, you would probably not do it. What you would do is train smaller models, which you can do, not on a powerful laptop, but basically on any computer cluster. Now, energy costs incur also when you do what is called inference. So you're asking, the model is there, and now you're deploying it, you're using it. The costs don't taper off. However, the technology and the field has become much more efficient. And especially if you're looking at green siting, so moving the data workloads to these green centers and a few other tricks like that, you can reduce the costs considerably. And I think that's all I have, because my time is up. There's a few more questions here. I don't know what would be the best way to approach them, but maybe you send them to me and I can.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right.
So
I hope this was a useful thing to do just after lunch, and thank you very much for having me.
See, some of these King's guys are smart. That was great, Eleanor, thank you. I think it's great. It's a really interesting, it just occurred to me, don't be a victim is really what she's saying. It's not there to be doing something to us. We can be in charge of it, and we should be. And it's exactly the same message we're saying with these climatic events and transition risks. Let's take control of this stuff in a way that benefits our business. So I think that's an interesting perspective.